Good morning, everyone. We are reconvening the special meeting of the Water Quality Control Commission for the purpose of deliberating and potentially making a decision on the Triennial review of the water quality standards. We approved the agenda during yesterday's meeting. Monty, if we can have a roll call vote to see who's here.
Yes, Madam Chair. Commissioner Candelaria.
Here.
Commissioner Surgeon.
Here.
Commissioner Dominguez.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Williams.
Here.
Commissioner Modi. Commissioner Patton.
Here.
Commissioner Rader.
Here.
Commissioner Cipher.
Here.
Commissioner Thompson. Commissioner Thompson?
There's something on the screen that's different than yesterday, a little black line.
Let me check.
I'm here.
You want me to check first?
But if he chimed in, we should be good.
Yeah.
It looks like it's.
Yeah, it's recording everything you're saying with words too. Commissioner Vigil, Vice Chair Wade,
Here.
Chair Stringer.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. So we will proceed with continuing our deliberations. We left off yesterday. We were just about to begin the Pecos River Basin changes. So we stopped basically at the top of page 113. In the hearing officer's attachment A report. And we've tried to reconcile all of the changes, so we'll go through segment by segment, and I think things will become more clear. And we'll note that Commissioner Beagle, correct?
Yes.
So the first segment up for consideration under the Pecos River Amendment is section 206. First one changes. 206, where NMED proposes to remove intermittent portions of the segment. Last night for some reason. Remove non-perennial reaches of tributaries to the Pecos and perennial reaches. And I open these changes up for deliberation. I will also note here on this segment, yesterday during the deliberations, we approved a number of stream segments to adopt a primary contact use, changing from a secondary contact use. 206 was listed. However, there are actually no proposed revisions to the recreational uses for segment 206. It's a non-consequential decision. We approved NMED's proposed changes. However, they're not proposing any changes for that particular concept. So just noting that for the record. I note that Landfill did not object to these changes. They simply directed the department to develop a procedure for establishing
Madam Chair, I didn't, in my notes, none of these had objections on what the Pecos River. Is that accurate? Did anybody else look different?
I believe that is correct.
Yes.
Commissioner Dominguez?
Madam Chair, considering there was no opposition by any of the parties to this proposed amendment, I would make a motion that we adopt those changes by Environment Department to 20.6.4.206.
Chair, I'll second the motion. Thank you. Maddie, may we have a roll call vote and no need to call the names out for those who are absent?
Okay. Commissioner Candelaria, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Surton,
Yes.
Commissioner Dominguez,
Yes.
Commissioner McWilliam,
Yes.
Commissioner Patton,
Yes.
Commissioner Rader,
Yes.
Commissioner Seifer,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson, Commissioner Thompson, okay, I'll come back. Commissioner Vehil,
Yes.
Vice Chair Wade,
Yes.
Chair Stringer,
Yes.
the motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to segment 207. Yesterday, we approved to adopt the change from secondary to primary contact for this. And just also noting that the hearing officer report states that NMED proposes to remove the non-perennial reaches of this segment as well. However, that is not the case. So we have already adopted the changes to segment 207. No further discussion is required. On to section 208. NMED is proposing, these are going to be quick, proposing to break out the perennial portions and non-perennial portions into different segments. As far as I can tell, we approved that yesterday as well. So there's no further action for this segment. We adopted NMED's changes as proposed. Moving on to section 209, I believe that is the same case as well, so no further action. The changes were adopted as proposed by NMED. Section 215 is the next one with revisions.
That checked off from yesterday as well.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. For some reason, I must have missed a check mark. So thank you. So 215 has been adopted as proposed by NMED. 220 is also been approved. So we're good with that one. $231 is also adopted with the changes that we approved yesterday. Okay.
What I had was, since it was a new segment being added, we have separated it out. I did not have it as, even though when the hearing officers reported it had been lumped in there. My notes were that we had left it to handle it separately, but I could be wrong.
We approved it as part of the primary contact issue, but not the period segment issue. So 231 is proposed to be added by NMED to incorporate some of the segments that were removed from the other sections with the proposed recreational use of primary contact. So this one is open for deliberations or motions.
Madam Chair? I'm sorry, Bill, you got some?
No, not discussion.
Oh, okay. I would move that we accept the NMED proposal for 20.6.4.231 as it addresses stream segments.
Chair, given that there were no objections by the parties, I would second.
Thank you. I would just confirm this would be necessary given the other changes that we did approve. So those segments had to land somewhere. So I think it's important that we adopt it for that reason as well. Further discussion? Madi, may we have a call vote, please?
Yes. Commissioner Candelaria, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Searchen,
Yes.
Commissioner Dominguez,
Yes.
Commissioner Mike Williams,
Yes.
voting for Commissioner Patton,
Yes.
Commissioner Rader,
Yes.
Commissioner Seifer,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Vehil,
Yes.
Commissioner Wade,
Yes.
Chair Stringer.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you. The next segment up for consideration is segment 307 in the Canadian River Basin. And I have that based on the approvals yesterday, we have adopted the changes and proposed at NMED. First, 309. So that one is also adopted as approved. The 11, however, we have not moved on. So we do need to open section 311. This is a unopposed motion to add language for consistency purposes. It's case for 311, 312. Yeah, 311 and 312.
Madam Chair, before we get to 311, you had mentioned 309 didn't approve, but there are changes. So.
I have that we also approved 307. So 307 and 309 have both been approved as proposed by NMED. Anyone disagree with that? And 311 and 312 are unopposed typo corrections.
Madam Chair, considering both of these are really just language cleanup, they're not substantive changes. There were no parties opposed to this. I would make a motion that we adopt the amendments as proposed to section 20.6.4.311 and 312.
Thank you. I will second that motion.
Okay.
Roll call vote.
Commissioner Candelaria, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Searchen,
Yes.
Commissioner Dominguez,
Yes.
Commissioner Mike Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Patton,
Yes.
Commissioner Rader,
Yes.
Commissioner Seifer,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson,
Yes.
Commissioner Vehil,
Yes.
Vice Chair Wade,
Yes.
Chair Stringer.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to also try to lump tonight's few segment changes because they're unopposed. So section 318 has a citation correction that wasn't pointed out in the hearing officer's report, but is seemingly unopposed and with correction. And 405 is another typographical correction, spelling correction. The same is true for section 408. And lastly, section 808. I think I'll stop there before we go to 900. 900 kind of starts the new section. So all of those segments that I just listed are unopposed changes to update a citation or correct spelling or typographical errors. So any discussion on those items?
Madam Chair, absent any discussion, I would move those sections be approved.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Candelaria, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Surton,
Yes.
Commissioner Dominguez,
Yes.
Commissioner McWilliams,
Yes.
Commissioner Patton,
Yes.
Commissioner Rader,
Yes.
Commissioner Cipher,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson,
yes,
Commissioner Vehil,
Yes.
Vice Chair Wade,
Yes.
Chair Stringer,
Yes.
the motion passes.
Okay. Moving on to page 130 of the hearing officer's attachment A report, considering changes to 20.6.4 900E primary contact criteria. The department proposes to amend this section to add criteria for waters with a primary contact designated use, basically adopting EPA's 2019 numeric criteria for toxins associated with harmful algal blooms. And it was objected, the objection was withdrawn. Take these one by one. Any discussion or motion? I will move to adopt the changes as proposed by NMED to ensure that we have numerical criteria for toxins associated with harmful algal blooms. That is a big concern.
Second.
Shall we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Candelaria, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Surton,
Yes.
Commissioner Dominguez,
Yes.
Commissioner McWilliams,
Yes.
Commissioner Patton,
Yes.
Commissioner Rader,
Yes.
Commissioner Cipher,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson,
yes,
Commissioner Vehil,
Yes. Yes.
Vice Chair Wade,
Yes.
Chair Stringer,
Yes.
the motion passes.
Okay, thank you. We will do them one by one. Moving on to section 20.6.4 900I, hardness based metals criteria. These proposed changes were not objected to. Discussion?
Madam Chair, I was gonna make, okay, Madam Chair, given that there were no objections to these changes, I move to accept the Environment Department's proposed changes to 20.4.900.
Second.
I have a roll call vote.
Commissioner Candelaria, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Surton,
Yes.
Commissioner Dominguez,
Yes.
Commissioner Mike Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Patton,
Yes.
Commissioner Raider,
Yes.
Commissioner Cipher,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson,
yes,
Commissioner Vehil,
Yes.
Vice Chair Wade,
Yes.
Chair Stringer,
Yes.
the motion passes.
Madam Chair, I would note that there were also some changes to that same section under H6 and H7.
Oh, yeah, you're right. It was not addressed in the hearing officer report.
And Madam Chair, it seems to me that the language added is clarifying language. And absent any discussion, I would move that the Environment Department's proposed language under section 900H6 and 7. But it's also on those.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Patton. Shall we have a roll call vote on that section?
Commissioner Candelaria, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Searchen,
Yes.
Commissioner Dominguez,
Yes.
Commissioner Mike Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Patton,
Yes.
Commissioner Raider,
Yes.
Commissioner Cipher,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson,
yes,
Commissioner Vehil,
Yes.
Commissioner Wade,
Yes.
Chair Stringer,
Yes.
the motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you. Vice Chair Wade. Now we're moving on to section 20.6.4.900I, 1 through 2, aluminum criteria. The department proposes to amend the language regarding the applicability of the criteria for aluminum into the tables. And this was objected to by Alano, stating that it was not technically supported. I open this item for deliberation. I'll just state for the record that this is to clarify issues with the inconsistency on the pHs, and that adopting it this way is perhaps somewhat conservative, but it's done to ensure the protection of human health and the environment. And I do support the changes. Commissioner Dominguez.
Madam Chair, add to your discussion, most of Lionel's objections somewhat centered around the pH ranges. During the Environment Department's rebuttal testimony, they pointed out that the acute and chronic dissolved aluminum criteria for the next code that was approved by WQCC in the EPA Region 6 did not specify a pH range. And since the state adopted a modified version of the guidance without the pH range, and that the Commission and EPA found that the criteria to be protected and approved those for the standard. And therefore, that aluminum criteria applied to all surface waters of the states since at least 1991. and therefore the state may not remove these criteria without justification and replacement with other criteria that is protective to aquatic life. So with that said, I would make a motion that we adopt the proposed changes to 20.6.4 900 I1 and 2 as
Thank you, Commissioner Dominguez. Do I have a second? Thank you. Shall we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Candelaria, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Surton,
Yes.
Commissioner Dominguez,
yes.
Commissioner McWilliams,
Yes.
Commissioner Patton,
Yes.
Commissioner Rader,
Yes.
Commissioner Cipher,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson,
Yes.
Commissioner Vigil,
Yes.
Vice Chair Wade,
Yes.
Chair Stringer.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Madam Chair, just for clarification purposes, that motion was specifically relevant to the limit criteria because, other changes within that same section to other criteria is before us.
That's true. Good. Thank you, Commissioner Dominguez. That's a good clarifying point, which applies to our next item up for consideration, which is in the same section, but has to do with the cadmium criteria. This proposal is no unopposed.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Thompson.
Please proceed, Commissioner Thompson.
In a previous motion this morning, we adopted language that said that we would use the same number of significant figures as recommended by standard methods for examination of water and wastewater. And I look at table 1 on page 134, and I see some things such as cadmium that the standard is 5 significant. In one place, it's 7 significant figures, I think. So I would support adopting the changes as proposed by the Environment Department. However, I recommend that the standards be limited to only 3 significant figures, which is consistent with standard methods. So I make that as a motion.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Pause with that motion and go to Commissioner Rader, who. Oh, wait. So the motion on the table is to adopt the cadmium standard criteria, and use only 3 significant digits throughout the entire table. Is that a correct summation of your motion, Commissioner
Yes,
Thompson?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Council Sanchez.
just a clarification on the language of the motion. I believe Commissioner Thompson made a motion with a recommendation that they limit it to 3 significant figures. If we can refer to the recommendation in the motion, that would clarify matters. Thank you.
Yes, I was going to mention that in my second. I would second it and make sure that we clarify, as you previously stated, it's as per standard method. Standards.
Thank you, Commissioner Sanford.
Chair,
Yes,
I just want to make sure I understand what the motion is. I think we're talking about on page 134, under section 1, the significant figures for cadmium there? Or are we talking about significant figures in the table under section 3?
Commissioner Thompson, can you clarify the motion, which section specifically your motion to limit the significant figures to 3?
Yes, I apologize. I conflated two separate topics. If you look at the language that we just adopted on 20.6.4.900I, page 131, it says calculated criteria must adhere to the treatment of significant figures and rounding identified in standard methods. And then I subsequently pointed out that in table 1, that would be 20.6.4.900 I parentheses 1 parentheses, I'm not sure. Anyhow, table 1 on page 134, I note that most of those have 4 and 5 significant figures. So I inadvertently conflated two things. Let me just restate my memo or my motion. I move that we adopt the cadmium standard for now. And I will make a second motion regarding the table in a moment. So my motion in short is to adopt the proposed language for the cadmium standard.
Okay, we'll take that motion first.
Yes, I could second that. Right.
We'll take a roll call vote on the adoption of the cadmium criteria.
Commissioner Candelaria, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Sturgeon,
Yes.
Commissioner Dominguez,
Yes.
Commissioner McWilliams,
Yes.
Commissioner Patton,
Yes.
Commissioner Rader,
Yes.
Commissioner Cipher,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson,
Yes.
Commissioner Vehil,
Yes.
Vice Chair Wade,
Yes.
Chair Stringer,
Yes,
the motion passes.
thank you.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Thompson.
Yes, Commissioner Thompson.
Would it be appropriate at this point to offer a motion that the numeric criteria in tables 1 and 2 be limited to 3 significant figures as recommended in standard methods?
I believe now is the appropriate time.
Then I would so move. I would move that the numeric criteria in tables 1 and 2 be limited to 3 significant figures. It's an editorial suggestion.
Identified in standard methods.
Okay, so we have the motion on the table, comment or second from.
Comment.
Okay, comment from Commissioner, sorry.
So, thank you, Madam Chair. While I certainly support the idea of clarifying, I guess, the need for using the appropriate number of significant digits, we just voted to essentially support language saying the same thing. To follow the recommendations of the standard methods, which I assume if you go and read the standard methods, it would say 3 significant digits. So I don't know, I feel like we're saying the same thing twice, but in 2 different ways. One is more clear, one is more precise, but this is a point of discussion. Do we need to vote on, really need to vote on this?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner.
In tables 1 and 2, I think we're talking about, I believe those are not criteria, those are slope and intersect equation.
Good point.
And so the significant digits in those cases are not necessarily criteria under column M, A, and B sub A.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Thompson. That's an excellent point. I withdraw my motion.
Okay. There's no motion on the table. We adopted cadmium. We're ready to move on to copper. Okay, copper, that discussion in the hearing officer's report is page 133 of attachment A. And this proposal from NMED, I guess this is a weird one. There's no changes proposed. They're noting that NMED is not adopting EPA's recommended criteria for copper at this time. And this was an unopposed non-change. So I don't think there's anything to vote on here, but we are establishing for the record that we're acknowledging that we're not adopting something that EPA is suggesting we should. Anyone disagree with that summation? So now we'll move on to hardness-based metals table. This is 20.6.4.900 I3. Just the hardness-based metals table. And this was another revision. Department proposes to amend the values in the acute and chronic hardness-based metals criteria to be consistent with the hardness-dependent equations for aquatic life criteria, and the motion was unopposed. Proposal was unopposed, not the motion. Do I have a motion or discussion?
Madam Chair, given that no party objected to the proposal, I would make a motion that we adopt Environment Department's amendments to 20.6.4.900 I3, dealing with hardness-based metals table criteria.
Thank you. Do I have a second? I'll second that. Thank you. Shall we have a roll call vote, please, Bonnie?
Commissioner Candelaria, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Surton,
Yes.
Commissioner Dominguez,
Yes.
Commissioner McWilliams,
Yes.
Commissioner Patton,
Yes.
Commissioner Rader,
Yes.
Commissioner Cipher,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson,
Yes.
Commissioner Vehil,
Yes.
Vice Chair Wade,
Yes.
Chair Stringer,
Yes.
the motion passes.
Thank you. Next, we're moving on to the section 20.6.4.900J1, acute and chronic aluminum criteria. Department is proposing to add language regarding the pH range for hardness-based criteria for total recoverable aluminum to remove the language regarding EPA's approval of hardness-based aluminum criteria. And this was objected to. Excuse me, sorry, by Leno. I open for deliberation and discussion. Mr. Community.
Madam Chair. Since I had made the motion on the previous aluminum criteria and so that testimony for this one is very similar. Reynolds' opposition focused around the state of science on aluminum bioavailability and toxicity. But much of the testimony kind of centered around pH levels and as previously discussed in environmental department's rebuttal testimony, what the commission has adopted for aluminum criteria did not specify a pH range. So based on that rebuttal testimony from the environment department, I would propose that we adopt environment department's amendments to 20.6.4 900 J1 criteria for acute and chronic aluminum.
Thank you, Commissioner Jenkins. Madam Chair, I'd also like to point out that numbers that are changing in the table are very small changes. So it looks like it's just maybe a little bit more accurate, not substantial changes. Thank you. Do I have a second to the motion? I would second the motion. I would just add that I think clarifying and aligning with EPA's disapproval, having that statement in there is very confusing to the regulation community. And so this is a change that will provide clarity in the regulations relating to this issue as well. Further comment before we take a vote? Shall we have a roll call vote on that motion?
Commissioner Candelaria, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Surton,
Yes.
Commissioner Dominguez,
Yes.
Commissioner McWilliams,
Yes.
Commissioner Patton,
Yes.
Commissioner Rader,
Yes.
Commissioner Seifert,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson,
Yes.
Commissioner Vehil,
Yes.
Vice Chair Wade,
Yes.
Chair Stringer.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Thompson.
Yes, Commissioner Thompson.
I'm looking at that table, 20.6.4.900 J1. This is on page 139, and I don't see any units in there. Is that an oversight or am I missing something? It's a long table. But I see the numbers, but I don't see what the units are.
Hold on just a moment, Commissioner Thompson. We're talking about the table on 135 and 136 of the hearing officer's report.
I'm sorry, on page 139 to 144. that table 1, I don't see units. In the preceding table, there is a set of units but not in this one.
Madam Chair, I think I can help.
Commissioner,
Commissioner Thompson, in the full standards, under, I don't know the exact numbers, but J1, and then at the end of that, after that table is section 2C, says that criteria are in micrograms per liter unless otherwise indicated.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Welcome.
thank you. Thanks for resolving that. Maybe they were somewhere, not, the previous sections, all of the types were pasted, and then these segments. Challenging to reconcile. Okay, so we are moving on to, and I'm probably not going to pronounce this correctly, Tributyl, however you say it. But
Tributyl tin.
say that again, Commissioner Thompson.
Tributyl tin.
Tributyl tin. Thank you. Not a chemist, biologist, so. Section 20.6.4.900 J1 tributyl tin criteria. This one was unopposed and aligns with EPA's recommendations. And for deliberation on motion.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
given that there were no substantive objections, I would move that we accept the Environment Department's proposed revisions to 20.6.4.900 J1 as it relates to tributyl tin.
thank you, Commissioner Sir. Yes, I should clarify my statement that it was unopposed. There were some level of opposition in the report, so I apologize for my oversight. But we have a motion on the table to adopt the proposal.
I'll second.
Vice Chair Wade, second. Roll call vote, please, Harvey.
Okay, Commissioner Candelaria, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Surton,
Yes.
Commissioner Dominguez,
Yes.
Commissioner Mike Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Patton,
Yes.
Commissioner Rader,
Yes.
Commissioner Seifert,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson,
Yes.
Commissioner Vehil,
Yes.
Vice Chair Wade,
Yes.
Chair Stringer,
Yes.
the motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to page 139 of the hearing officer's report, section 20.6.4.900 J1, 304A criteria. The department did not propose amendments regarding the criteria for copper, selenium, arsenic, and manganese. However, EPA recommended updates to these criteria. The department may propose changes in the future. They're working with testing laboratories to develop the capacity to analyze the samples. No party objected to the delay in adopting these criteria. Therefore, we have nothing to act on. Next section, 20.6.4.900 J2, applicable notes. The department is proposing to add a note pertaining to the numeric criteria table to provide guidance as to when acute and chronic hardness-based aquatic life total recoverable aluminum criteria is applicable, and when the acute and chronic numeric aquatic life dissolved aluminum criteria. And no party objected to this proposed revision. Do I have a motion or discussion?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Sexton.
I would propose that since there were no party objections and because it provides better guidance for acute and chronic hardness based aquatic life, that we would accept the proposal.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Shall we have a roll call vote, Monty?
Commissioner Candelaria, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Searchin,
Yes.
Commissioner Dominguez,
Yes.
Commissioner McWilliams,
Yes.
Commissioner Patton,
Yes.
Commissioner Rader,
Yes.
Commissioner Cipher,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson,
Yes.
Commissioner Vehil,
Yes.
Vice Chair Wade,
Yes.
Chair Stringer,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you. Check me if I'm missing anything, but I believe our next item up for consideration is on page 147 of the hearing officer's report and applies to 20.6.4.900 K through N ammonia criteria. Department proposes to update the aquatic life ammonia criteria to be consistent with the federal aquatic life ambient water quality criteria for total ammonia, including acute and chronic aquatic life criteria for total ammonia nitrogen. No party objected to these changes. Discussion or motion. Just to clarify, Madam Chair, on the previous motions, we talked about aluminum in that criteria table. We also talked about the lack of changes for copper, selenium, arsenic, or manganese. Do we need to vote on the other changes in that numeric criteria? Because there's quite a few other changes that weren't listed in the hearing officer's report. At least it looks to me like there is. Maybe I missed it. Anything that was captured by the 304A, but I see what you're saying. That's a catch-all.
Madam Chair, if I could offer a path forward,
Yes, please.
is possibly this would be a good time to take a 15-minute break and drink time. Maybe we can reconcile. There's something was skipped over or not, and at that point in time, then we can come back to the ammonia criteria discussion as well as whether we have something missing or not.
Okay. I think that sounds like a good plan. So we will recess for 15 minutes and return at 10:10.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Council Funches.
just to make sure that we haven't, or at least I haven't missed something. I'm looking at my notes and perhaps I'm simply missing it, but regarding 20.6.4.308, at the bottom of page 120 of the hearing officer's report, in the top of that, at page 121, my notes aren't showing that the commission acted on those proposed changes. I simply may have missed that. I just wanted to be sure that that was the case, so we don't have a gap in the rulemaking.
Council Sanchez, just to be clear, did that apply, what you're referencing apply to the changes for 307 and 308 and 310? I'm sorry.
No, just 0.308.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Thompson. My notes show the same thing. We acted on 307 and 309, but we did not act on 308.
I think that is correct, actually. Because they weren't part of our previous approvals.
I have the same record.
So we need to go back and act on 308. We can take care of that when we reconvene.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks for pointing that out. Okay.
Yes,
Thank you. Okay, we'll reconvene the special meeting of the Water Quality Control Commission. So in reviewing the hearing officer's report and the record, I think Commissioner McWilliams brings up a very valid point that we need to consider the revisions to the tables in 20.6.900 J 1. J1. Yes, just J1. We need to consider the parameters not already approved by the commission and referenced in NMED's Exhibit 2 regarding the basis for why they're incorporating these numeric criteria into the table. We mentioned the parameters that NMED is choosing not to incorporate into the table at this time, but we did not consider the ones they are recommending incorporation into the table. So we need to consider the proposed revisions by NMED to incorporate the other 304A criteria. Discussion or motion?
Madam Chair, the only clarification I would make to that description of what we need to do is that we have already approved the addition of the tribunal. It's the only one we called out because there was some, well, because the hearing officer included that in the report. That's on page 137.
And we're about to consider aluminum.
Okay.
Hold on, let me double check on that. I was thinking that we already voted on the aluminum one.
Yeah.
As well. I said aluminum and I meant ammonia. Oh, sorry. I read ammonia, or I read that. Okay, so. J1. And then actually the ammonia reference is to a following table. So that's my statement about ammonia. And again, refer to the proposed amendments. Table J1. Discussion or motion. I'm going to move that we adopt NMED's proposed revisions to section 900 J1.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Patton. Further discussion? Seeing none, shall we have a roll call vote, Madam?
Commissioner Candelaria, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Searchen,
Yes.
Commissioner Dominguez,
Yes.
Commissioner McWilliams,
Yes.
Commissioner Patton,
Yes.
Commissioner Raider,
Yes.
Commissioner Cipher,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson,
Yes.
Commissioner Vehil,
Yes.
Vice Chair Wade,
Yes.
Chair Stringer,
Yes.
the motion passes.
Thank you. And thank you, Commissioner McWilliams, for bringing that to the attention of the commission. Okay, now we are moving on to ammonia criteria in section 20.6.4.900 K through M. The department proposes to update the aquatic life ammonia criteria in these sections to be consistent with the federal aquatic life ambient water quality criteria for total ammonia, including acute and chronic aquatic life criteria for total ammonia nitrogen. And no party objected to these changes. Open for deliberation or motion.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Thompson. I move that we adopt the criteria for ammonia 20.6.4.900 K through M, as in Michael.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Dominguez. Being no further discussion, shall we have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Candelaria, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Searchen,
Yes.
Commissioner Dominguez,
Yes.
Commissioner McWilliams,
Yes.
Commissioner Patton,
Yes.
Commissioner Raider,
Yes.
Commissioner Cipher,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson,
Yes.
Commissioner Vehil,
Yes.
Vice Chair Wade,
Yes.
Chair Stringer,
Yes.
the motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to section 20.6.4.901, publication references. The department proposes amendments to this section to be consistent with the most current version of these documents. Overall, some references needed update and some were removed because they were no longer the correct reference. So this is basically a cleanup section that was unopposed. Open for deliberation or a motion.
Madam Chair, section 901 be approved.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you. Commissioner Raider, shall we have a roll call vote, Monty?
Commissioner Candelaria, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Searchen,
Yes.
Commissioner Dominguez,
Yes.
Commissioner McWilliams,
Yes.
Commissioner Patton,
Yes.
Commissioner Raider,
Yes.
Commissioner Cipher,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson,
Yes.
Commissioner Vehil,
Yes.
Vice Chair Wade,
Yes.
Chair Stringer,
Yes,
the motion passes.
thank you. Okay, so that concludes all of the revisions addressed in the hearing officer's report. Based on how we have did all of the changes that were proposed, I suggest I move that any typographical errors or numbering be adopted so that we ensure consistency and accuracy in the final work product for those standards and address those grammatical issues as a whole.
I would second that motion. I guess with a question that would be, and this would be a separate discussion. But it might be, the chair's ability to review those edits.
Do you have another comment to add to that, Commissioner Dominguez?
I think we might. We probably not hear this. Actually, I think the chair has to sign off on the clean copy that goes for publications to state record center. Which would encompass that, but it's probably best if we back the discussion.
That includes the statement of reasons. I know I have to sign off on the statement of reasons.
I think we'll do separate as statement of reasons.
So the motion is to address any typographical or grammatical or numbering changes in the final product to ensure consistency and accuracy, with the understanding that the chair will review those final changes before being sent to publication. Seconded by Vice Chair Wade. Further discussion? Now we have a roll call vote, please.
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Candelaria, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Serton,
Yes.
Commissioner Dominguez,
Yes.
Commissioner Mike Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Patton,
Yes.
Commissioner Rader,
Yes.
Commissioner Cipher,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson,
Yes.
Commissioner Vehil,
Yes.
Vice Chair Wade,
Yes.
Chair Stringer,
Yes.
the motion passes.
Thank you. I want to make one last final call for anything that any of the commissioners want to bring forth that we may have skipped in this process, or well, pretty much, have we skipped any items that you think need to be considered before we move forward? There is an assumption that the hearing officer's report generally encompassed all of those changes.
Madam Chair, from my vantage point, I think as we've worked through the document, I think we've been pretty comprehensive, capturing everything. From my notes, I think they should.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Thompson.
Yes, Commissioner Thompson.
I agree with Commissioner Dominguez. It looks to me like we have covered everything. But as you know, as Council Sanchez brought up a minute ago, we thought we'd missed something. If we did miss something, will we have an opportunity to go back and review it at our next full commission meeting on the 8th?
I will seek Council Sanchez's advice on a response to that question.
Chair Stringer, I believe that the short answer to Commissioner Thompson's question is no. The rules governing rulemaking require the commission to do this within 60 days. The 60th day will be next Tuesday, March the 8th. I don't know that we would have time to even call an emergency meeting to reconvene and reconsider anything that might be omitted before the deadline. Certainly not a special meeting, which requires 3-day notice under the Open Meetings Act. So I think we might want to pause, or the commission might want to pause and double check its work up to this point. Because as it is, it's going to be a tight squeeze. I have 50 pages of the statement of reasons in order already written. I will continue to work through that and get it to Commissioner Stringer as quickly as possible, wholly mindful of our deadline. But I think with the time constraints, addressing any omission might be quite difficult.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Sanchez. May I propose that we take another 15-minute break to allow us to do one final check before we close the record on deliberation, and reconvene at, let's just say, 10:45. So we are recessed. Meeting of the Water Quality Control Commission. Deliberation and decision on the triennial review. Throughout the last day and a half, we have made decisions on the revisions to the standards. We have concluded our review. During the break, we took an opportunity to double check to ensure that we haven't missed anything in the hearing officer's report or otherwise, noting that all parties had an opportunity to review the draft hearing officer report and identify or file any exceptions to the hearing officer's report. So to the best of our knowledge, we have addressed all of the proposed revisions as part of the hearing and conclude our deliberations based on the decisions we've made over the last 2 days. So we have one final action for consideration, which relates to the final statement of reasons. I'll let Commissioner Dominguez speak to that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would move that regarding the statement of reasons and final order, that the chair work with commission counsel to develop the statement of reasons and final order, and that the chair sign on behalf of the commission on the statement of reasons and final order.
I would second that.
Shall we have a roll call vote?
Chair Stringer,
Yes, Council Sanchez.
it doesn't hurt, I think, to be redundant, but I would remind the commission that at the last meeting, they already moved to delegate that authority to the chair, but I see no harm in repeating or reaffirming that action.
Thank you, Council Sanchez.
Commissioner Candelaria, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Surton,
Yes.
Commissioner Dominguez,
Yes.
Commissioner McWilliams,
Yes.
Commissioner Patton,
Yes.
Commissioner Rader,
Yes.
Commissioner Cipher,
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson,
Yes.
Commissioner Vigil,
Yes.
Vice Chair Wade,
Yes.
Chair Stringer.
Yes.
The motion passes.
I want to thank all of the commissioners for their participation in the deliberations and the good conversation and adoption of new water quality standards. And I will open the floor for any other business as part of this meeting before we conclude.
Chair Stringer, just this is Council Sanchez, one housekeeping matter. I've requested the hearing officer to provide me with a Microsoft Word version of his final hearing officer's report, and particular attachment A. There, if you would work with, or if your office would work with him to get that to me, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, I'm sure we can get a copy of the Word version to you to aid in your development of the final statement of reasons.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, not seeing any other items for discussion, I will convene the meeting, the special meeting of the Water Quality Control Commission for the purposes of decision and deliberation and decision on the water quality standards, search water quality standards. Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See everybody in person.
Yeah.